those. He's got 2 True Names, he's got 2 Vendilions, and he's got a Snapcaster, so he doesn't have Young Pyromancer like Brian did. And there's Counterspell, and there's Probe, and, you know, there's Spell Pierce and all that stuff. So this should be a little bit interesting, I think, to see this matchup play out. I think it favors Storm, but I'm not positive. Well, Mondello is a player. This may be a familiar face to you guys. When we were in Syracuse, he actually won the Legacy Open there. So he does have Open Series success as well, as here is an Island. That's a Ponder. So 2 Legacy champions this year going to do battle 5-1.
Yeah, Eric Rill's on the play with Storm here against the Jeskai Stoneblade deck. This is one of the matchups when you're playing a combo deck. You don't dislike it, but you're not happy to see it either. There is a lot of disruption that Jake has. Game 1 is pretty important here. Game 1, Jake will still have cards like Lightning Bolt, like Swords to Plowshares in his deck that don't really do much. So if you're Rill, it's important you get this one because you're probably a slight underdog in games 2 and 3.
I'm going to search up a Tundra here after Mystery card does come. So Jake has his Tundra, Eric has his Ponder Resolving, Mystery card with an Island, Brainstorm here from Jake. I do wonder if Jake knows what he's up against. Rill, it's weird. Rill has, I don't want to say a wide range, but he goes from Delver decks to Storm decks, and both those decks do play Ponder, so you don't know if Jake knows what he's up against here. Jake's going to cast a Ponder of his own. But we've seen Rill, again, win Legacy Opens with, 4-color Delver decks, Grixis Delver decks, and he does dabble in Storm from time to time. He has top-8 Opens with Storm before. Hasn't won one with Storm yet, but maybe this is Old Faithful for him.
That was a risky Brainstorm there from Mondello. He did not have a second land. He found Tundra on his third card down, so he almost had himself Brainstorm locked. Did take the land. Didn't mean he wanted to fire off a Ponder immediately just so he could shuffle his deck. Does give Eric Rill an opening.
In Mondello's hand, he has a Brainstorm, a Stoneforge Mystic, and a Dig Through Time over there. I like the one-up Dig in this deck. Pretty sweet.
And if Rill has a fast opening, this is going to be a window. You know your opponent's on either Stoneblade or Miracles or some sort of control deck. It's not going to be a Daze deck. If you think you have the kill here with Rituals, you probably just go for it.
Yeah. Do you play Storm much in Legacy? I know you like High Tide.
I haven't dabbled too much in Storm in Legacy. It's a deck I would like to get into. For me, card availability is a thing. I don't have all of these cards yet, but
here's another Brainstorm. 3 more cards. Pierce, Force. This is a good Brainstorm. Jeez. And a Flooded Strand, too. Put those 2 cards back very quickly. Will Mondello. And just pass a turn back. Rill will draw. Underground. Dark Ritual.
All right, so Rill not able to go off on the turn where Jake was tapped down. He's going to have to go off through some disruption. 3 black right now. So we start with the Duress, 2 black floating.
Spell number 2. Yeah, this isn't a... My favorite thing about Storm is just, when they cast Dark Ritual, it's like, all right, it's go time. Like, there's really nothing else. There's no setup. It's just, I'm moving in.
It's very different from the modern style Storm decks, which are just trying to build up to a large... They just kind of snowball. Like Modern Storm combos off a lot more like a High Tide deck where you just start going and going and eventually you draw your whole deck. Legacy Storm is counting to 10. Yep. If your opponent's at 30, the game's harder.
Force of Will, double Dig Through Time, and a Spell Pierce. Jake actually has 3 copies of Dig Through Time in his deck list. Thought he only had 1. He actually decided to play a couple more here.
So Eric will have to play around Spell Pierce. That's the only card here that matters.
Yeah, I think right now Jake has 4 cards in his graveyard. Flooded Strand would be the 5th one, so I don't think he can cast a Dig Through Time in this situation.
All right, so it's just the Spell Pierce.
Yeah.
Can Eric win through it? And the interesting part about Storm here in Legacy is that it's not... So sometimes when you combo with these decks, you're starting when you're unsure of whether or not you're going to get there. This is not one of the case. You can map out the entire line if you're Eric. You either have it or you don't. Takes a while to figure out sometimes which one it is, though.
I would assume if he's able to just cast Rituals like this, he can overpower Spell Pierce.
You would think so. Right now, this is... If this resolves, it's 4 black floating.
Mondello's trying to figure out what's the best spot to actually cast his Pierce. And he's decided now on this Dark Ritual.
It's probably now or it's never.
Yep.
Sometimes Storm doesn't actually have the requisite amount of Storm. We've seen, I think, a pretty famous match. We've seen Adam Prozac go off with only a Storm count of 9 for...
Come on, don't remind him about that one. That was such a good game.
That's a ballsy combo.
Yeah. That was so awesome. So awesome. Just knew his opponent would cast a spell to get him to Tendrils. Rill looks a little befuddled by this spell Pierce.
Yeah, he shouldn't be too confused by it.
No, he knew it was coming. I guess maybe he was hoping that Rill wouldn't time his spell correctly.
Yep. He'll pay.
Yeah.
Color is one of these, is probably his biggest limit right now. 4 spells have been cast. He has Lotus Petal will be spell 5.
Mike Eagle.
Going to use 2 of the black mana to cast Infernal Tutor. There we go.
Now we'll see if he does anything with this on the stack to make himself Hellbent.
Yeah, he's got a Cabal. He's going to reveal Cabal Ritual. So he's going to go Ritual into Ritual, and then his last card in hand is Passion Flames, and he should be able to go from there.
So yeah, he's going to use Infernal Tutor. Not a Hellbent. He reveals Cabal Ritual to get a Cabal Ritual. That's spell number 6. He currently has 1 black mana floating. Those Cabal Rituals cost 2, but they make... Well, they may just make 3. I don't think there's only 5 cards, it looks like, in his graveyard.
Looks like it at this point.
They're a black Pyretic Ritual.
He can also sacrifice a Lotus Petal, too, to make it so that he'll have 6 cards. So what he's going to do is he's going to cast Cabal Ritual here. That's card number 6. So he started the game off with a Ponder. Yeah, you see him counting right now. The spell count and everything, too.
Yep, had to tap his land there, but that is spell number 7. He now has 3 black.
Yep, sacrifices the Petal. That'll add a red. Now he goes up to Threshold. You see the die move up to 6. So that's 6 black. You have 1 red. So now he's got 3 black mana floating, and now we get to do it all again.
Right, so he has 8 spells. Past in Flames is spell number 9. So he just has to find Tendrils now. He has 2 black mana floating. If you don't know how this works from here, he's going to go ahead and use the Cabal Rituals to make a lot of black mana. Then he will flashback Infernal Tutor. He'll have no cards in hand. He'll go get Tendrils of Agony, and because he has played at least 10 spells this turn, that will drain Jake 420.
Yeah, this is easy for here. This is easy mode, as they call it. He knows what's in Jake's hand 2 dig through times, so there's nothing even really to be worried about. There's the Infernal Tutor. As you mentioned, no cards in hand, so it is Hellbent. Go through the deck. Find the Tendrils of Agony. There it is. We're going upstairs for a bunch. Eric Rill going to win game number 1 here over Jake Mondello. Storm up a game over Jeskai Stoneblade. Mondello very quickly reaching for his deck box because he needs some help from the sideboard. See how much of it he has. He has a Red Elemental Blast, a Blue Elemental Blast, a Spell Pierce, a Flusterstorm, 2 copies of Containment Priest, 2 Meddling Mage, an Elspeth, haven't seen the Knight Errant for a while, along with a Wear Tear, Pyroclasm, a Sword of Feast and Famine, a Painslayer Angel, a Supreme Verdict, and sure, a Manriki Gusari. I love the spice of Legacy. It is the spice of life.
2 slots in his sideboard that he didn't use, so he has 13 different cards. But no, game 1 was Eric's game to win. Jake would have loved to have pulled off the upset there, but now he gets to prepare much better for the battle. His cards like Swords to Plowshares can come out. He gets to board in, well, anything that can really counter a spell here. Red, blue, let's see, start with Red Elemental Blast. That's going to be great against Storm. You could even use Blue Elemental Blast against Past in Flames if you wanted to. It may do more than some of the things in his main deck. Spell Pierce, great. Flusterstorm, that's great at countering Storm cards. 2 copies of Meddling Mage are not bad here as well. He will probably bring in the Sword of Feast and Famine as part of his equipment package. Also, it certainly is better than the Umezawa's Jite in here.
Yeah, I mean, that's 7 cards to bring in. You mentioned swords, that can go out, and some other options here that just are a little bit lesser that he may not want. So maybe some equipment or whatever.
Council's Judgment.
Yeah.
True Name Nemesis.
Maybe some number of dig through times too. They're a little slow. Not a lot slow. Maybe he only wants to shave down to like 2. Because I think I would still want some because, you know, seeing 7 cards, it's a lot.
So one thing you do want to keep track of here is that he, in his deck, doesn't want to, like, if you, this is, Eric has a common sideboard plan here. Eric's sideboard starts out with 3 copies of Dark Confidant, and this is something that Storm actually does a lot of the time, which boards in Dark Confidants, anticipating that their opponents will board out all of their removal.
One thing about this, too, if you follow Rill when he plays Storm, he's been doing this particular sideboarding strategy for a really long time. Some players don't. You know, we saw like Royce Walter at the Grand Prix, and we've seen other Storm players, Brian Cook, too. You know, not everyone has Dark Confidant, but if you follow Rill, he always has boarding Dark Confidant in his Storm decks. Probably going to bring it in here.
Yeah, so this would be a matchup for Dark Confidant. Outside of that, he has 1 copy of Defense Grid, which is pretty decent here also.
Yeah, I expect to see that as the permission that you will expect from a Stoneblade strategy, be it Esper or be it Jeskai, which is what Rill's up against right now, is typically counterspells. There is a little bit of permanent base state in Meddling Mage, but for the most part, they're going to have cards like Flusterstorm, like Spell Pierce, obviously like Forcible since it's a blue deck. Defense Grid is good against those strategies. Might even see the Swarm come in.
Yeah, so if he's worried about Meddling Mage, he has some options. He has 1 Massacre, which is great against Meddling Mage, takes care of all of them. He has 1 copy of Chain of Vapor. This oftentimes comes in a lot of matchups, just in case there is a single problematic permanent you need to deal with. He also could use Slaughter Pact to get rid of a Meddling Mage.
Yep. Use it on the turn, he just plans on going off. 0 mana, kill your Meddling Mage, kill you.
Add a Storm.
Yep, true, add a Storm. And get you out of here.
But these games are decidedly harder for Rill after sideboard.
I think he should be a favorite game 1 a high percentage of the time. And I think that the match is super close after sideboard.
Which, if both those are true, that does put the match in Storm's favor.
Yep. I do think it is pretty close after board. I mean, Jake just has a lot of nice cards, and he gets the board out of his garbage. To be fair, Jake's draw, well, I mean, that game, it wasn't very good. You also don't know if he knows what he's up against, or, you know, he drew 2 copies of Dig Through Time, which can be good, but...
He had to spend his early turns making sure that he was going to hit his land drops. He couldn't use his cantrips as flexibly as he may have wanted to, and that gave Eric an opportunity to combo him.
Well, if you guys are just joining us home, we do appreciate having you here for the Legacy coverage. It is Cedric Phillips and Matthias Hunt. Round 7 of 9. Just enough players for 9 rounds here. At SCG Live, hashtag SCGRI, not R-O, R-I-C-H, for your tweets all weekend long as we work on crowning another champion here this weekend. Standard was won by Jeskai Ascendancy. Very powerful card.
Yeah.
Look, eventually that card has to make it a Legacy.
Harlan Fear with a Jeskai Tokens combo deck. It was a lot like a Jeskai aggro deck, actually.
Yeah. I don't know when. Maybe that's your job. That card has to be Legacy playable.
You can play it in Legacy. I think one of the things that's hurting it right now is that the Treasure Cruise edition has led to a lot of main decked Pyroblasts, which do really hurt. The card Jeskai Ascendancy is pretty vulnerable to Pyroblast.
That is true. That's true. I don't know who the deck builder is out there, but I'm calling it now. Some event. I don't know if it's going to be an Open Series event, an IQ, something. Someone is going to have a tuned Jeskai Ascendancy deck in Legacy and destroy everyone with it. We've seen it in Standard. We're seeing it slowly but surely here in Modern. And I think it's going to happen in Legacy. I don't know who, but that card's too powerful, and it's too blue not to play in this format.
It does require you to play creatures, which is harder in Legacy.
Well, I know you don't like those, but...
If they're combo pieces, it's acceptable.
There has to be a deck there. There's just no way there's not. There's an Arid Mesa to start things off. Rill with the Gataxian Probe. Let's see what's going on in Jake's hand. Force of Will, Dig Through Time, Meddling Mage, Karakas, Flooded Strand, and an Island.
You see Meddling Mage there. Out of a 2 of in Jake's sideboard. It was one of the cards we talked about for sideboarding that Eric may have trouble answering.
So he's got the info. He knows he's got to beat a Force of Will now and a Meddling Mage that'll likely come down and name Infernal Tutor, as that's what it names most of the time. No guarantee that Rill will do that, of course, but that's oftentimes what we see, is he'll play an Island and now a Ponder.
Yeah, you can win around a Meddling Mage. If Jake needs the Meddling Mage to stop Eric from killing him, he can name Tendrils of Agony, but you're right that Infernal Tutor is usually the safer card to name. Lots of times if Eric can get a Tendrils kill like you saw last game, it's not that hard for him on the way to find an answer for Meddling Mage. However, if you take away Infernal Tutor, it takes away Eric's ability to find an answer for the Meddling Mage.
Rill giving this Ponder a lot of thought before he decides what he wants to do with it. Aptly named card.
See if he wants to keep off it.
Every game here for Rill becoming crucial too. Of course, we know he's 5-1. Wins this match, he moves to 6-1. Then he's playing a match basically for top 8 and a lot of Open Series points and working his way back in the conversation for the Players' Championship. He's going to shuffle here with the Ponder. He's up a game in what I feel like at least game 1 is a really good matchup. Probably a pretty good matchup overall just because his win percentage in game 1 is so high, so he's only got to get one of these sideboarding games. He's also in a tournament that looks to be just well-positioned for his deck.
Yeah, it's a favorable matchup, but it's losable. We did see Brian Braun-Duin win this in the top 4 of last week's Legacy Grand Prix.
Yep. Beat Royce Walter. Won game 1, too. That was the big surprising result.
If Storm loses game 1, I think they're definitely an underdog.
Me too.
Right, getting game 1's important.
Take a draw. It's an island here. Sacrifice the Arid Mesa. Will Jake. We got a Meddling Mage on the way. And we'll get confirmation of what it's going to name here in just a moment. Again, likely to be Infernal Tutor. But we'll find out. There's the Volcanic.
We'll see what the Meddling Mage does name. Looks like cracking it suggests he's going for it.
Yeah. It's on the way. He's going to get a clock on the table. There's Caracas. There's the Mage. Chris Bakula has shown up. And we'll see what he will not allow Eric Rill to cast, as Rill will move forward here. Grim Tutor looked like it may have been the draw. Here's a Brainstorm.
See here, Rill setting up. It's going to depend what that Mage is naming. That'll affect how Eric plays around it. If Infernal Tutor is named, you can just combo without Infernal Tutor. If you can just find the Tendrils, you can just storm up to 10.
That or Ad Nauseam. You can power through it.
Yep.
And we have it confirmed. It is Infernal Tutor. Surprise, surprise.
Right, Ad Nauseam works really well as well.
Rill's hand right now looks like it has a couple copies of Dark Ritual. There's also a Lotus Petal there too, so he does have the kind of hand that says, I don't really care that you did that. I can just cast a bunch of rituals and push forward. Though we do know that Mondello has a Forceful and a blue card in his hand, so he's got some protection.
There's just a lot of mana in Eric's hand right now. He has a pair of Dark Rituals, a Lotus Petal, and a Lion's Eye Diamond, which means his hand is fast, but maybe not that good against Disruption.
Yep, there's Duress. Blows this up.
That will help a ton here by taking care of Force of Will.
Dig, Island, Flooded Strand. And Jake has no idea what the top card of his deck is, or anything, really. I don't know if Rill can go off.
He might be able to. This is 2 spells this turn. He wouldn't have dropped the Lotus Petal, I don't think, unless he was planning to.
That's like exactly what I was thinking. I'm just like, I don't think he would cast this right now if he wasn't going to go off.
This is the magic, the puzzling part of Storm, because Rill has perfect information. If he can figure out how to win with these cards, it's just a win. That's why you see why those reps of Storm are so important.
Now, you can't cast Infernal Tutor. We know that because Meddling Mage is in play.
So he has 2 Dark Rituals. He has a Lion's Eye Diamond. We're not sure of the remaining 2 cards.
A Pass and Flames over there. The thing is, he doesn't have any mana floating yet.
Yeah, but then there's a 5th card hiding out there.
Yep. The draw's a Tundra. There's an attack for 2. Rill's going to go down to 16.
And
Mondello just played a Flooded Strand, passed the turn back.
if Rill is willing to just go for it here, you see with the draw of Cabal Therapy, I imagine he will. I believe he has a combo kill here.
I mean, he would have to get, he'd have to get pretty lucky, right? Like, he doesn't have Tendrils in his hand. He has Past in Flames, a Therapy, 2 Dark Rituals, and like a Lion's Eye Diamond.
So how does he find the win?
Yeah, he'd have to Brainstorm or Ponder into something. I mean, there's the potential that he knows the top cards of his deck.
Yeah, it's not a certainty, and I think that's the point. He'd have to do a probabilistic combo.
Well, now he's putting the die in place, so, okay, he's going for it. So here's Dark Ritual.
Right. And I like this here. He has enough blue mana, I think, to make this work. So what he's going to do is he's going to make as much mana as he can. So we start with 3 black. Let's make that 5 black with a second Dark Ritual.
Yep, that's good.
Going to build up toward this Past in Flames.
I do wonder if he's going to cast a Cabal Therapy or not. There's Cabal Ritual.
Well, Ritual brings him... He does not have Threshold, I don't believe. He's holding Cabal Ritual on the stack. Oh, no, yeah, it looks like he has 6 cards in the graveyard.
I think you might not be able to see a land there, but
okay.
Yeah, because he's up to 7.
Sure, up to 7 mana, down to 6 to cast Cabal Therapy. So this is... Storm count is not going to be an issue this game.
No, not at all. That's the easy part. I just think it's rather telling. We know the last card in his hand is Past in Flames. Eric is basically just saying, like, I feel like the window's open.
Well, I think what Eric can do here is he can cast Past in Flames out of his hand, and he can actually, if he doesn't crack Lion's Eye Diamond, it does give him the ability to reset if this doesn't work. So I think what'll be interesting to see is, does he crack this Lion's Eye Diamond with, with his first cantrip on the stack? Or maybe with his Past in Flames.
Well, Past in Flames is on the stack. This is actually really interesting. He's going to Dark Ritual. You mentioned Storm's not going to be a problem here. This is number 7.
Yeah, so it's an insurance pause here because if his cantrips miss, he still actually has enough mana to flashback Past in Flames from his graveyard and start over.
Yep. Though it doesn't look like he's going to have a very full graveyard to do that with.
Not so much. He's building a lot of black mana.
The way for him to find a way to go off, that's Probe, that's number 1.
Yeah, and that was one, if you saw that hiding off the top of your screen, that's going to help Rill a ton. So he gets some draws to work with.
Aha!
Grim Tutor.
He must have known that. Because now he's drawing that and going to get a Tendrils and kill him.
And that should do it. 2-0, Eric Rill defeats Jake Mondello, moves to 6-1. Probably just 1 win from that top 8.
This deck choice for this weekend, and we saw Royce Walter make top 8 last weekend in Grand Prix, New Jersey, among those 4,000 competitors, but this deck choice by Eric Rill, the way that this tournament has shaken out, if he feels as